Hey guys, how you doing? It's Wendy from Georgia Peach Prepping. Um, I'm here with the news. So here we go. Media compares pilot who reportedly told passengers, number 18, to a drug abuser, ISIS sympathizer. Media analysts sounded the alarm over an airline pilot who reportedly told passengers, let's go number 18, accusing him of substance abuse or comparing his actions to terrorism. The pilot was on a Southwest flight from Houston to Albuquerque, signed off his announcement for passengers by saying, let's go number 18, according to the AP journalist who was reportedly on the flight. The phrase has become code word for a more profanity-laced message for the squadron chief. In reference to an animated audience at the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Talladega Speedway in Alabama earlier this month. But the swiftest backlash was saved for CNN analyst Asha Rangappa, who appeared to compare the Southwest pilot to a IS sympathizer. As an experiment, I'd love for a Southwest airline pilot to say long live ISIS before taking off. My guess is that 1, the plane would immediately be grounded, 2, the pilot fired, and 3, a statement issued by the airline within a matter of hours, she tweeted. Help. Okay. In other news, health officials and scientists are closely tracking a new mutation of the you-know-what, amid concerns that it could be more transmissible than the original strain. A subvariant of the word associated with an airline, but it's not, variant of the you-know-what, labeled AY.4.2, has been detected in dozens of countries, with the vast majority of cases being reported in the UK. An increase in AY.4.2 sequence submissions has been observed since July. The WHO said in its weekly epidemiological update this week, it said 93% of the cases were reported in the UK, where the strain was gradually contributing to a greater proportion of cases and accounted for about 5.9% of overall D cases reported there in the week beginning October 3rd. That's just what we need. G20 makes mild pledges on climate neutrality coal financing. Leaders of the world's biggest economies agreed Sunday to stop funding coal-fired power plants in poor countries, made a vague commitment to seek carbon neutrality by around mid-century, as they wrapped up a Rome summit before the much larger UN climate conference in Glasgow. While Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi and French President Emmanuel Macron described the Group of 20 summit as a success, The outcome disappointed climate activists, the chief of the UN, and Britain's leader. The UK is hosting the 2-week Glasgow conference and had looked for more ambitious targets to come out of Rome. The G20 countries represent more than 3/4 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and Britain had hoped for a G20 bounce going into the Glasgow COP26 meeting. Environmentalists and scientists have described the UN conference as the world's last best hope for nailing down commitments to limit the global rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius, 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, above the pre-industrial average. American B-1 bomber flies over Mideast amid Iran tensions. The U.S. Air Force said Sunday it flew a B-1B strategic bomber over key maritime choke points in the Middle East with allies including Israel amid ongoing tensions with Iran, as its nuclear deal with world power remains in tatters. The B-1B Lancer bomber flew Saturday over the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which 20% of all oil traded passes. It also flew over the Red Sea, its narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and Egypt's Suez Canal. The Strait of Hormuz has been the scene of attacks on shipping blamed on Iran in recent years, while the Red Sea has seen similar assaults amid an ongoing shadow war between Tehran and Israel. The Islamic Republic has denied being involved in the attacks, though it has promised to take revenge on Israel for a series of attacks targeting its nuclear program. Fighter jets from Bahrain, Egypt, Israel, and Saudi Arabia flew alongside the bomber. In the time since Iran has abandoned all the limits of the deal and drastically reduced the ability of international inspectors to keep watch over their program, while Iran insists its program is peaceful, the U.S. intelligence agencies, Western inspectors, and others say Tehran had a structured military nuclear weapons program through the end of 2003. Biden sending a B-1 bomber into the region allows him to send a clear message of reassurance to regional allies, as the U.S. Air Force Central Command put it on Twitter. But it doesn't involve a nuclear capable bomber. Here we go with the squadron chief again. He tends to get us in the worst mess I've ever seen in my life. But you know, I actually feel sorry for the man. We all know he's just a puppet. Squadron chief said, "We were clumsy over France submarine row." It was the first meeting between the two leaders since the AUKUS Pact, which will let Australia build nuclear-powered submarines, was agreed. AUKUS caused a row with France, which lost a $37 billion deal with Australia. Mr. Macron said it was important to look to the future. Squadron chief said what we did was clumsy. I was under the impression that France had been informed long before that the deal was not going through, honest to God. The AUKUS Pact, which will also cover artificial intelligence and other technologies, is one of Australia's biggest defence partnerships in decades and is seen as an effort to counter Sea Country. It's scuppered a deal signed by Australia in 2016 for France to build 12 conventional submarines. At the time, France's foreign minister called the Security Pact a stab in the back, and France temporarily recalled its U.S. and Australian ambassadors. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi locked horns over Taiwan on the sidelines of a Group of 20 summit on Sunday, trading warnings against moves that could further escalate tensions across the Taiwan Strait. In an hour-long meeting in Rome, Blinken made crystal clear that Washington opposes any unilateral changes to Beijing to the status quo around Taiwan, a senior State Department official said. A recent increase in Chinese military exercises in Taiwan's air defense identification zone, including what Taipei said were 8 such flights on Sunday, is part of what it views as a stepped-up military harassment by Beijing. I don't know which is worse, the U.S. or China. The U.S. is trying to be everybody's big brother and police, and China's just a big old bully. But that's my opinion. Iran says Israel and U.S. likely behind cyber attacks on gas stations. Iran's civil defense chief on Saturday accused Israel and the United States of being the likely culprits behind a cyber attack which disrupted gasoline sales across the Islamic Republic, but said a technical investigation was yet to be completed. We are still unable to say forensically, but analytically, I believe it was carried out by the Zionist regime, the Americans, and their agents. I can't pronounce that name, so I'm not even going to try. The head of civil defense, which is in charge of cybersecurity, told state TV in an interview. Iran said in the past few years that it is on high alert for online assaults, which it has blamed on its arch foes, the U.S. and Israel. The United States and other Western powers, meanwhile, have accused Iran of trying to disrupt and break into their networks. President Ibrahim Raisi said this week that the cyber attack, which disrupted the sale of heavily subsidized gasoline, was designed to create disorder. The disruptions on Tuesday came ahead of the second anniversary of bloody protest in Iran over a sharp increase in fuel prices in November 2019 that turned political, with protesters demanding the country's top rulers step down. Jalali said that based on completed investigations, Iran was certain that the United States and Israel was behind the cyber attacks on Iran's railroads in July and the Shahid Raji port in May 2020. Iran's train services were delayed in July by apparent cyber attacks, with hackers posting the phone number of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's office as the number to call for information. China on Saturday warned Lithuania and European officials not to disrupt ties over decisions by Taiwan and the Baltic country to open representative offices. China demanded in August that Lithuania withdraw its ambassadors in Beijing and said it would recall China's envoys to Vilnius after Taiwan announced that its office in Vilnius would be called the Taiwanese Representative Office in Lithuania. Lithuania said earlier this year it planned to open a representative office in Taiwan, a decision that also angered Beijing. China resolutely opposes official contacts between countries that have diplomatic relations with China, and authorities in Taiwan. Wang Wenbin, a foreign ministry spokesman, said in a statement on its website, "We urge the Lithuanian government to abide by the solemn political commitments made when establishing diplomatic relations with China and not to make irreversible wrong decisions," Wang said. And this one right here really surprised me. I hadn't heard anything about it. The U.S. has developed sophisticated electronic sensors for its ballistic nuclear missiles, which allows them to better time detonations and a major advancement in the global arms race. The sensors have been buried in hundreds of the most powerful American warheads, which our experts say gives them an improved ability to destroy Russian and Chinese nuclear-tipped missiles. The technology will also allow them to hit some of the world's most challenging targets, such as hardened silos or mountain sanctuaries and storage bunkers in NK. The new components, which determine and set the best height for a nuclear blast, cost the U.S. some billions of dollars and were completed in July for installation on missiles aboard Navy submarines. Oh boy, the big bear. Russia will react to other countries' attempts to break strategic parity, President Vladimir Putin said on Monday, referring to the global missile defense system being deployed by the United States and its allies. Russia is concerned that an efficient missile defense will allow its Western adversaries to abandon the mutually assured defense doctrine that has for decades prevented nuclear superpowers from attacking each other. We know very well that some of our foreign counterparts will not stop trying to break this parity, including by means of deploying elements of global missile defense in close proximity to our borders, Putin said at a meeting with military leadership and defense contractors. Putin also said the participation of U.S. Navy command ship Mount Whitney in NATO drills in the Black Sea was part of a trend towards greater Western military activity near Russia's borders. We can catch a glimpse of it through binoculars or through the crosshairs of matching defense system, Putin said. China's growing military muscle and its drive to end America's predominance in the Asia-Pacific is rattling the U.S. defense establishment. American officials see trouble quickly accumulating on multiple fronts. Beijing's expanding nuclear arsenal, its advances in space, cyber and missile technologies, and threats to Taiwan. The pace at which China is moving is stunning, says General John Hayton, the number 2 ranking U.S. military officer who previously commanded U.S. nuclear forces and oversaw Air Force space operations. At stake is a potential shift in the global balance of power that has favored the United States for decades. A realignment more favorable to China does not pose a direct threat to the United States, but could complicate U.S. alliances in Asia. New signs of how the Pentagon intends to deal with China challenge may emerge in coming weeks. As I've said before in previous videos, Sea Country is making a move. They see how weak our nation is. The United States used to be one of the greatest countries in the world. But I believe along the way we overstepped our boundaries. We've been in useless wars that we shouldn't have been a part of. We need to sweep around our own back door to help our people, to help our military veterans, to help our homeless population, to help our kids before we can help the world. All these illegals trying to come in should not be allowed in. I'm not against immigration, as long as you do it the right way. You go through and get your green cards, and you go through the process of becoming a naturalized citizen. I'm all for it. But when you cross illegally, just as the word says, it's illegal. What if we were to go into their countries illegally? Their governments would have a fit. It's just some food for thought. So let me know in the comments what you think. I've got several things lined up, and as soon as they get firmed up, I'll let y'all know. I am always looking for new things to do. Anybody that needs somebody to go up live with them, just shoot me an email. My email's on my page. And y'all please give thumbs up or thumbs down, whichever one you desire. Share and subscribe. Good night. God bless. Stay prepped up and stay prayed up. Night.